Hi all, I'm Manuel Tender from Digital for OSH, talking here about BIM and saving lives. So my presentation is, does BIM help to save lives? Let's try to answer this question. So Digital for OSH is a research group from Portuguese and UK universities and industrial partners. We began our work during COVID, following Loughborough University work in Tideway project. This is the largest infrastructure project in Europe. Loughborough University was working there in research with a team of senior researchers. The project was financed by IOSH, and then we began talking and trying to discover a little bit what was happening with BIM for occupational safety and health. Our team has an executive team, an advisory panel, so people from academy and industry. It's not just an academic project. We are working with hardly with industry, namely in the major projects in London, and we have been doing some work since COVID, doing some presentations, some publications, namely about lessons learned of using BIM for occupational safety and health. Let's call it OSH. Okay. So why is BIM important in the OSH management? So if working in OSH means minimizing risks, we are talking about helping to save people lives, workers' lives, workers that work in a hard sector, construction. We know that there are several accidents, namely fatal accidents with considerable financial and logistical impact on companies. It's not a very easy sector because usually there is a separation between what is risk management and what is production. It's kind of a dilemma. Let's remember that the general principles of prevention and all the European directives talk about taking into account of the state of the evolution of the technique, namely in terms of IT. So this is where appears BIM. What do we know? We know that BIM has a potential to optimize OSH management in some areas. So OSH players must understand what is BIM, must know what we can reach with BIM. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Well, accident consequences are very high. So in terms of financial, in terms of delays, in terms of, and this is the most important part, the life that is lost, a worker that dies in his construction site. So this is what we do not want. We know that the earlier we get an intervention in a project, the most realistic and efficient is our results. BIM for OSH, it's not a new area. Some researchers have been developing some literature reviews. This is a list of some literature reviews during the last years. Some authors focusing in risk assessment, in training, site planning, task planning, and I'm going to talk a little bit of those areas. UK was the first to have a specification for collaborative sharing and use of OSH information using BIM. So this document, PAS 1192 Part 6, describes the implementation strategies for all the intervenients. They talk about CDE, EIR, BAP, so talks a little bit about the outputs that we have to get in a 3D model in terms of method statements, risk assessments, risk zones, temporary works that are usually not included in the design, crash detection, as-built drawings, etc. And this document, this specification, gives us two options to include OSH information in the BIM model. We can include it in a parameterized way, we can include this information as a parameter in the model. So we got a risk or a preventive measure hazard in a model, we can then link it to a PDF, to all whatever document we want. We want also, we have the possibility to link it to COVID, and then we can have the information in the 3D model in a more graphic way. So we got a sign, we got a triangle, a diamond, whatever, that allows us to understand that in that place there is a safety risk. There are some softwares already working on that. This is an example, which is the best way. Some companies work with parameters, some companies work with the information in a graphic way. So there is not a better way of doing it. It's not an answer. We have not that answer yet. So we got some areas where BIM has some potential, and I will begin with contractual management. Without BIM, there are some information that we do not have. We have the language barrier, but with BIM, we can include in that common data environment all the information about workers, equipment, subcontractors, etc. We can also, and we should also include OSH information in the employment requirement and the BIM execution plan. And all the documents in this OSH area can be included through this CDE, Autodesk BIM field, or Procore, or another. Cost control, 5D. Without BIM, we usually are not able to get the OSH costs detailed in the global cost. With BIM, it's possible to have that listing of each in separate item, with each and separate measuring, guardrail, signaling, etc., which gives us a more accurate cost control and less time spent in budgeting. We have the risk assessments. Without BIM, wow, it's manual and error prone like other areas in the BIM. With BIM, it allows us to begin this approach in the design phase, and we can have we get a better capacity of identifying earlier the risks before the project has started. And we can identify also critical zones, conditionalisms, and we also can automatize risk assessments. Training, and I give here the example of VTT Finnish Institute, was the first working 12 years ago in this area, working with a 3D model to communicate risks with no linguistic barrier to workers. Site planning. Okay, site planning, it's not included in the design drawing. Temporary facilities are not considered. And with BIM, we can, through pre-model objects, we can get information about the main construction site. We can optimize space and volume and understand if there are some critical shadows and space. And very important, we can understand what's the impact of the construction site with the traffic, with the neighborhood. We can, for example, have the safety perimeters. We also, about task safety planning, also can optimize. We can give another view, a more clear and concise view about what is happening in terms of protection, collective and individual protection. Temporary works can be better detailed also. Monitoring, also very important with BIM, because we can have an anticipated visualization, we can have more detailed inspections, and we can manage it in a real-time way. Collective protection, another example from VTT, from Finnish. We can really here have a better visualization, and this is very important for workers to have a better notion, a better visualization and understanding about what things are going to be done and how they are going to be done. Emergency planning, we can also create emergency scenarios, evacuation routes, or with a 3D model. Also about firefighting equipment positioning, it's very good to understand more realistic where is the equipment. About accident investigation, we can also use the 3D BIM model to recreate scenarios of accidents. So main use for BIM for us, and this is a Dutch survey. So the main importance was using identifying potential site hazards before construction begins. So workers have a better notion about what risks are going to happen. So with this, we can say that this is a paradigm shift in OSH management. Risk is optimized, and there's a better connection between production and safety. So we can say an international experience is telling us this, that BIM really seems to help saving lives as we optimize OSH management. Of course, there are some challenges, not compulsory by the project owner. OSH players are resistant, do not have all the knowledge that they need. Lessons learned are not retrieved in a very correct way. And then there's different maturity levels between countries. And then with these challenges, we had the idea to create an observatory, and we call it the BIM for OSH Observatory. It's an initiative from Digital for OSH to understand what is the current state of BIM adoption in each country, and how it can be measured, and how can lessons learned be disseminated through all the markets. Then, first element of the observatory will be a collaborative platform where you can, in an open access all the information in the platform. And then there will be a barometer that will inform about quantitative and statistical metrics that measure BIM uses for OSH all over the world. We will get this through longitudinal data, through a set of metrics. We are going to include a survey about the uses. So we are going to ask in this platform, and I hope some of you can answer soon in this platform, about the uses. What is the most common use, and what are potential of uses of BIM? Is it site planning, task planning, training, risk assessments? So the idea here is to have a knowledge transfer between companies that are not using BIM and countries that are not using BIM, do not understand how BIM can be useful, do not understand what is the potential of BIM, and countries that are already mature in that area. So the idea is to transfer that knowledge from mature countries to less mature countries. To understand, and this is a sample, this is a pilot that we have made in a project in London, and we asked people about uses of BIM, and we get as conclusion that trading was the main use that was given to BIM in the OSH area. And that were some areas that were not used, like accident investigation. People seem to do not use BIM for accident investigation. So the idea here is to get through kind of a benchmarking, benchmarking between countries, understand, not a competition, but to transfer information, what is the level of implementation, and also the level of acceptation. Because in this survey, we are also asking people about their agreement with some ideas. If BIM has reduced occupational safety risk levels, if he enables better management, if he helped control budgets, etc., etc. So the idea is to understand what are the level of acceptance of people. We have made these pilots, and we had the information that the conclusions at green were the ideas where people agree. People agree that BIM reduces number of conflicts and errors, facilitates risk assessments. yellow, people are not sure if BIM exists in the investigation of accidents, it facilitates the task of inspecting workplaces, etc. And the red, people do not agree. So people, for example, do not agree that BIM tools available for OSH are sufficient and adequate. The third element is to disseminate lessons learned from these countries that are already mature to other countries that have never experimented, for example, BIM. Through these PDFs, we call it Project Lesson Benefit Realization Card, and they are going to be available in the platform. And when you get through an open access, you get a login in the platform, and you can retrieve the part of information. We characterize the project, task description, the challenge, solution, how it was solved. So through this, we get information about that lesson learned. We made this pilot in Tideway with a 3D model that was used to help planning works, also with VR glasses. Okay, this was our first experiment. So I hope you all can use this observatory really soon. We are going to give news as soon as possible. Thank you very much. If there is any question, please